having a rehearsal? How did it go? You didn't do anything?
No, we rehearsed.
You're sweating, so I can see.
We rehearsed.
You rehearsed. So it's going to be a fantastic show. As a teacher, I'm a little worried, of course, as you probably know, because I never see you girls. And it's kind of like over. You realize that we have 3 weeks left? Is that good news or bad news? Come on. It's good news. But I'm honest. Let's take advantage of these 3 weeks that we have left. Let's continue working hard. I want to remind you that we have tutorials. I don't know, should I have tutorials or no? Should they know? Wednesday and Thursday if you want. I had tutorial last week with Kaisika and Lula. Anyway, it's about speaking. Your videos, the videos of Dorian Gray, I saw all of them. I still haven't given feedback yet. We're going to have, if we have class next week, we're going to have a class of feedback of the videos. Lovely videos, excellent work. I have to say, girls, that you're very creative. And I'm impressed with that. Now, having said that, I also noticed in quotation marks a problem. What do you think? A little pronunciation. You have to keep on it. I mean, good, of course, but we want to achieve better pronunciation. It can always be better, exactly. And how do we practice pronunciation? By practicing. Yeah. And talking about speaking, welcome to Hiroshima. 3 classes, supposedly, I need for this activity. This is just the warmer and the start of it. Then we're going to read the whole selection. That's why you brought the literature book. And then finally, whenever we have classes, maybe next week, we have a test, a reading comprehension test. Formal, a vocabulary and reading of Hiroshima. But it's very interesting. So let's take, first of all, what do you know about Hiroshima? Who can?
I think that is
I can't hear Maria Alejandra. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those were the first ones. Yeah, of course. Pearl Harbor happened first. We were already in war with Hitler in Germany, and then the United States had the war with Japan because Japan invaded the States with the famous Pearl Harbor attack. Continue.
That's what you said.
Who can add to what Maria Alejandra said? What do you know about in 11th grade you studied this. Yes. Do you know when it was dropped, the bomb? 1945, of course, the end of the Second World War. And the first bomb was in Hiroshima, the second bomb in Nagasaki, and more than 200,000 people were killed with the bombs. Without having background knowledge of this, without reading, we can never say something if we don't have arguments. I think that is very clear. We need arguments. It's easy to say, yes, I agree, I disagree, but why? So we need to become knowledgeable and read the selection we have here. I prepared a complete page on Mr. E's about Hiroshima, videos against Pearl. You'd be surprised at some of the explanations. There's even a priest here that talks, like saying that everything was perfectly done, that it had to be done like that, and that it was justifiable. And if you ask any North American or Americans, right, Raquel, maybe, no, yes, and me, I'm from Chicago, as you know, Chicago girl. I think if you have a survey in the United States, 90% will say that they agreed with the bomb. Or no, what do you know about that, Raquel?
I don't know about it.
I don't know much about it. But if you ask a North American, they would probably say it was justified. So what do you think initially? Who thinks that bomb that killed 200,000 civilians, or those 2 bombs, really, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, do you think it was correct to do? Raise your hand if you think it was justified. Yeah, I mean, with your limited knowledge or no knowledge, what do you think? Girls, what do you think? You would raise your hand? What?
No.
Attention, please.
I don't agree.
You don't agree with the bomb?
No, because I think any death is justified.
No death is justified.
It can't be justified.
And the rest of you, you're simply not sure.
Well,
I
think there should have been a reason for them to agree with the bomb. We don't know it, but instead, well, anyway, I say it's not justified. Like without knowing anything, it's not justified. That's
Maria Paula, then we go over here to Val.
no reason would justify like killing that much people.
Innocent people.
It is
Yes.
like there's no
There's
reason.
no justification at all. But
Yes, but she said that it's not justification to kill someone, and like the problem was between some people and everyone like paid for it in Japan, so I think that it's unfair for that.
it's not fair. You will not. Let's watch your video, initial video, to see what you think. Okay? Are you ready? You don't have to take notes or anything. You don't really need your earphones. Let's just listen to it together.
On August the 6th, 1945, two American superfortress bombers arrived over the Japanese city of Hiroshima on the world's most devastating military mission. The Enola Gay, with Colonel Paul Tibbets at the controls, was about to drop the first atomic bomb, a weapon conceived by a group of international scientists based at Los Alamos in the United States. So far, no one knew exactly what effect the bomb would have, either on the unsuspecting inhabitants below or on the crew of the plane itself. They were soon to find out.
The bomb went off, the whole inside of the airplane just lit up as if someone had set off a flashbulb. And then we had to wait, and this was our big worry, is what would the blast do when the blast got to the airplane? And finally the blast did arrive. It was like being in an ash can and getting someone kicking. Then we crowded to the window and saw just the whole city completely covered in smoke with this very tall mushroom cloud rising from it.
President Truman had already threatened the Japanese with a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth. When the truth was revealed, his words seemed an understatement. Buildings vaporized, so did the clothes on people's backs. Was it a bomb that should never have been dropped? Some people thought so. Others argued that it shortened the war and kept a subsequent peace. One thing was not in doubt. Hiroshima taught mankind the awful truth about nuclear weapons and just what horror they could bestow.
Okay, that's just a little initial video. Before we go to the next video, what did you find most disturbing of that, and what are your initial feelings? Raise your hands. 1, 2. Camilita.
Didn't get the reason or they.
Say it again.
Like, I didn't really get the reason why they told me.
Well, there's really not enough information. Little by little, we'll read about it. I prepared a page on Mysteries full of information and links. And then, of course, we're going to read in the American Selection book about Hiroshima. It's a very important first-hand account on what happened, the aftermath of the bomb. And then you'll get enough information. For now, it's just kind of like news report. So, feelings? Any other feelings?
What I found most disturbing about the video is that they didn't know what was going to happen to the people at Hiroshima.
They didn't know. They were just like, I'm going to drop this bomb and let's see what happens. If they get killed or if they just, I don't know, if they get a headache.
Imagine your daily life. Yeah, we're studying here, people going to the mall. People working and suddenly, boom, a bomb from nowhere, 200,000 people to die. It's disturbing.
What I also find disturbing is that the bomb didn't only kill many people, but it also affected like the health of many others. That
For many years.
Yes, that still have like the consequences of that bomb. So it isn't only a massive killing, but a massive like health problem that may influence all the humanity.
But well said, and like you said, still today, I understand
Yes, we
mutations.
still have mutations.
Exactly. Anyone else, or we move on? Oh yes, we have 2 more volunteers here. Go for it. Who first? Miss Pulido first, and then we go to Miss Perez.
Like, is that I don't know, like the radiations of the bomb, like they affect like and it's genetics, and like it creates like deformities.
Of course, that's what's happening still today. And Ms. Perez?
I saw a movie called Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, yes.
So
With Ben Affleck.
what I understand is that Hiroshima was like a revenge of the United States because of Pearl Harbor, because they destroyed many.
And with the justification of the government is to end the war and save American lives. That's why they say they dropped the bomb, to save thousands of American lives.
But I think it's not justified that they have killed a lot of people that didn't even
Completely
have,
innocent.
Yeah.
Children, women, completely innocent. Okay, should we move on to the next video? This one kind of shocks me. The next video is, was it wrong to drop the bomb on Japan? There? Sure. We're going to watch the next video. Where is it? Ahí. ¿Y este?
Press the thing.
Dale, amplia la pantalla. Amplia, abajo.
No? No.
Baja la pantalla, abajo.
Help me, Laurita, because I'm a little...
President Harry S. Truman's decision to use atomic weapons against the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki proved to be one of the most controversial decisions in American history.
Please.
As the years have passed, the controversy has only intensified. More and more people, both in America and abroad, have condemned both President Truman and America for that decision. But this criticism is based on limited historical knowledge of both the situation Truman confronted and the basis for his decision. Such flawed analysis has been aided by the unfortunate influence of some very bad history, such as that written by members of the so-called atomic diplomacy school. These historians disgracefully allege that Truman proceeded to drop 2 atomic bombs on Japan, which he knew was on the verge of surrender, so as to intimidate the Soviet Union in the already developing Cold War. That specious interpretation must be refuted fully. Truman sought to bomb Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 2 major military-industrial targets, to avoid an invasion of Japan, which Truman knew would mean, in his words, quote, an Okinawa from one end of Japan to the other, end quote. His assumptions were entirely legitimate. By July of 1945, the Japanese had been subjected to months of devastating attacks by American B-29s. Their capital and other major cities had suffered extensive damage, and the home islands were subjected to a naval blockade that made food and fuel increasingly scarce. Japanese military and civilian losses had reached approximately 3 million, and there seemed no end in sight. Despite all this, however, Japan's leaders, and especially its military, clung fiercely to notions of getsu-go, decisive battle. In fact, the Japanese government had mobilized a large part of the population into a national militia which would be deployed to defend the home islands. Confirming the Japanese determination to fight on is the fact that even after the use of the atomic bombs against both Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese military still wanted to pursue that desperate option. The atomic bombs forced Emperor Hirohito to understand clearly, and in a way his military leaders refused to comprehend, that the defense of the homeland was hopeless. It took the unprecedented intervention of a Japanese emperor to break the impasse in the Japanese government and finally order surrender. It was only the dropping of the atom bombs that allowed the emperor and the so-called peace faction in the Japanese government to negotiate an end to the war. All the viable alternate scenarios to secure American victory, all would have meant significantly greater American and Allied casualties and much higher Japanese civilian and military casualties. According to American military estimates at the time, those numbers would have been well above 1 million. Hard as it may be to accept, Japanese losses would have been far greater without the bombs. And the overall casualties would also have included thousands of Allied prisoners of war whom the Japanese planned to execute in case of invasion. Truman's use of the bomb should be seen as his choosing the least awful of the options available to him. Even in retrospect, far removed from the pressures that Truman faced in 1945, his critics can offer no serious and convincing proposal regarding a viable and less costly alternative. The judgment of history is clear and unambiguous. The atomic bombs shortened the war, averted the need for a land invasion, saved countless more lives on both sides of the blood-soaked conflict than they cost, and ended the Japanese brutalization of the conquered peoples of Asia. Given the alternatives, what would any moral person have done in Truman's position? I'm Father Wilson Miscamble, Professor of History at Notre Dame for Prager University.
Join Prager University, subscribe to our YouTube
complicated.
channel, and sign up for free at pragerU.com.
Complicated. Oh, it's not that easy to say yes, no. There are many arguments, there are many reasons, and as you see there, supposedly it saved millions of lives in the end, in the future. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? And let's take advantage of Tokyo, which is coming up soon. As you know, there's always a speaking, and this speaking is related to you've got some idea of the speaking. My question is, what do you think of what the priest said? Do you agree or disagree with what he said? What is your position at this point?
I have to agree or disagree.
Or you can be in the middle. You ready, everyone? You have 20 seconds in your notebook. When you go through work, the three of you, 20 seconds in your notebook to prepare the response. Are you ready? And then you have to speak 1 minute to your neighbor. 1 minute. Get ready. Okay. I'm going to count to 3. Prepare. Don't talk yet. Prepare your response. Hopefully with notes. 1, 2, 3. Complete silence. 20 seconds. It saved American lives, but no doubt. It obliged Japan to surrender. After the atomic bombs, they had to surrender and the war was over. Still wasn't justified to kill 200,000 innocent people. Stop. Pick volunteer 1. You have volunteer 1. In this case, 2 people will act as volunteer 1 and then volunteer 2. So you speak at the same time. Are you ready? 1 minute speaking when I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Stop. Okay, feedback from your peers of mistakes or any opinion that you have, a little feedback. Okay. Volunteer number 2, get ready. When I count to 3. 1, 2, 3, go.
I eat condiment.
Something is going to make everything worse. Just because there's going to be more like revenge from one of these to the other. I don't know, but is that the Japanese are really about honor and I their country. They just did one thing wrong.
Feedback very quickly.
That's normal. I do that too.
Okay, may I have your attention, girls? In a future class, we'll have the debate. We're still not knowledgeable. We still don't know. You're going to send me a post, not yet, when we finish, probably next week, a post on your opinions with arguments if it was justified the bomb or not. Not yet. We're still not ready. We're going to read in American Selection Literature, page 983. It's an excerpt from a book called Hiroshima by John Hersey. Please open to page 983. Are you there? It says John Hersey, 1914 to 1993, author of Hiroshima. Page 983. Yes, no problem. Before, we're just going to read like 5 pages, but it's a complete book. Page 983, we're going to read a little about John Hersey, and then page 985, it's like 7 pages. That is it's an excerpt from the book. So it's a long book, really. But before that, I want you to see the book trailer. And then after that, we're going to start reading the selection together. Is it clear? Okay, let's watch. Here, just simply watch, observe, you don't have to take notes. going back to mysteries, I just want to show you. The rest is homework. You have until next week, not this week. Attention, you have this week and next week to watch all the material that is there. And then by Sunday midnight, not of this week, but next week, send me a post. What do I have on that page? Attention, please. What haven't we seen? I really recommend this. The more you go beyond, girls, the better. You know I'm not going to oblige you. You know I'm not going to give you a bad grade if you don't check everything. But the more you do, the more knowledgeable you become and practice skills. I hope I'm convincing. Look, there's a very good documentary called, what's it called, Valecita?
24 hours.
24 hours after Hiroshima. It's a very interesting documentary. Then there's Hiroshima Nuclear Atomic Bomb USA Attack on Japan. It's 8 minutes. We already saw the book trailer and this one of the priest that kind of like impressed me. I don't know if it impressed you. U.S. Crimes, Hiroshima Atomic Bomb. I think we saw that one, right? And then there's a kind of like a song from the 70s. You're probably going to hate the music, although I find it interesting. And they made this song like, you know, protest. Wishful thinking Hiroshima. So it's interesting to check. Then you will see a link to a what? Photo essay of Hiroshima. And then here, some reasons to be against dropping the atomic bombs. Because we saw reasons why it was okay to do. How about some reasons against dropping the bombs? Read. And then after that, of course, vocabulary. This is taken from the pages we're going to read. Vocabulary, minimum vocabulary you should know from the story here, the selection Hiroshima. Remember, we're going to have a test next week too, related to these words and to the story. Is it quite clear what you have to do?
Yes.
And then, of course, post a thread. So in the minutes that we have left, let's go to page 983. And let's say I need 6 volunteers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8 in case. And 9 mahal in case. Okay, I'm sorry. Attention, please. Volunteer number 1. John Hersey, 1914 to 1993, page 983. Everyone, please concentrate. Sorry, I'm going to bother you. Okay, go for it.
John Hersey was born in China to American missionary parents. The family lived in China until Hersey was 10 years old, when they returned to the United States. In 1936, Hersey graduated from the university and became a foreign correspondent in East Asia, Italy, and the Soviet Union. His experiences working as a journalist served in the premise as a premise for his 25 books and countless essays and articles.
Continue a little more.
Okay. Hersey combined a profound moral sensibility with the highest artistry. His novels and essays not only examine the moral implications of the major political and historical events of his day, they do so with high literary grace. In 1945, Hersey won a Pulitzer Prize for his novel A Bella Fadano, in which an American major discovers the human dignity of the Italian villagers who were his enemies in World War II.
Well done. And what is the secret of what you're doing? What is the secret of her novel? Doing really well. Let's read fast. Very, very good, darling. And that's the idea. When we read word by word, it doesn't come out that well. So let's try to imitate that style. The atomic bomb, volunteer number 2.
The atomic bomb. During the 1940s, Hersey traveled to China and Japan as a correspondent. William Shawn, then editor of The New Yorker, made the unprecedented decision to bomb all of the magazine's other editorial content in order to publish Hershey's article.
Hershey's. You're thinking about the chocolate bar. Okay, volunteer number 3. Hersey
published the novel The Wall, which tells of the extinction of the Warsaw Ghetto of the Germans
by the Germans
during World War II. Hersey later works include A Single Pebble, 1956, The War Lover, 1959,
Bayer.
Bayer 1960, the Algiers model incident 1968, the writer's craft 1964, blues 1990.
To learn and to give feedback to each other. Comprehension. For now, it's pronunciation. Or fluency. But if you're number 5. Whose turn?
Number 5.
Who's number 5? If not just somebody.
Number 6.
We could go for 6 then.
Exactly 15 minutes past 8 in the morning on August 6, 1945, Japanese time, at the moment when the atomic bomb flashed above Hiroshima, Miss Toshiko Sasaki, a clerk in the personal department of East Asia Teamworks, had just sat down at her place in the plant office and was turning her head to speak to the girl at the next desk. At the same moment, Dr. Masakazu Fuji was settling down desk. At the same
Settling down cross-legged.
To read the Osaka Asahi on the porch of his private hospital, overhanging on the one of the seven deltaic rivers divided Hiroshima. Which divided Hiroshima. Mrs. Hatsuyo Nakamura, a tailor's widow, stood by the window of her kitchen, watching a neighbor tearing down his house because it lay in the path of an air raid defense fire lane.
Fire lane, yes. And the Reverend?
Reverend Mr.
Kishoshi Tanimoto,
pastor of the Hiroshima Methodist Church, paused at the door of the rich man's house in Koi, the city's western suburb, and prepared to unload a handcart full of things he had evacuated from town in fear of the massive B-29 raid which everyone expected Hiroshima to suffer. 100,000 people were killed by the atomic bomb, and these 4 were among the survivors. They still wondered why they lived when so many others died.
Wait, that sentence, sorry for interrupting you, doesn't that affect you, that sentence? It's kind of like strange, you know, they still wonder why they lived when so many others died. I don't know, is that destiny, God? I don't know who to blame, or I really don't understand that. Continue, please.
Each of them counts many small items of chance or
Volition, a new word.
A step taken in time, a decision to go indoors, catching one streetcar instead of the next. That spared him.
That spared him. Do you understand what they say? That spared him? That saved his life. Exactly.
And now each knows that in the act of survival, he lived a broken life and saw more death than he ever thought he would see. At the time, none of them knew anything.
Well, then you had a long paragraph. Number 2. Number 2, no, number 7.
The Reverend Mr. Tanimoto got up at 5 o'clock that morning. He was alone in the parsonage because for some time his wife had been commuting with their year-old baby to spend nights with a friend in Ushida, a suburb to the north. Of all the important cities of Japan, only 2, Kyoto and Hiroshima, had not been visited in strength by B-san or Mr. B. As the Japanese, with a mixture of respect and unhappy familiarity, called the B-29.
What do you mean by Mr. B?
reality. He had heard uncomfortably detailed accounts of mass rapes of Iwakuni, Tokuyama, and other neighboring towns. He was sure Hiroshima's turn would come soon. He had slept badly the night before because there had been several air raid warnings. Hiroshima had been getting such warnings almost every night for weeks, for at the time the B-29s were using Lake Biwa, northeast of Hiroshima, as a rendezvous point, and no matter that city the Americans planned to hit, the super fortresses streamed in over the coast near Hiroshima. The frequency of the warning and continued abstinence of Mr. B with respect to Hiroshima had made its citizens jittery.
Expecting a bombing, but of B-29s, not of an atomic bomb, killing 200,000 people. And there we are to continue in our next class in the classroom. It's very interesting, very interesting. So God bless you girls. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. I appreciate your punctuality.